And so I come on these shows to give my experience and knowledge because I want to inspire you and impact you. And if there's someone out there listening to this podcast that I changed their life, or I mentioned one word or an idea, I'm doing my job.
Hi, I'm Wyatt. And I'm Grace. And you're listening to our dad and your host of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and we're back with our Experts Corner interviews with experts around the real estate world. You guys know we love short-term rentals, but I like to help you walk into this game with your eyes wide open and bring other experts from other avenues inside of real estate and sometimes outside of just the business world and talk to them about the lessons learned so that we can all walk into all of our investing game with our eyes wide open. Today, I'm really, really excited about the conversation we're about to have with Mr. Ben Reinberg. He's the founder and CEO of Alliance CGC. He controls over $500 million in real estate assets. He's the host of the I Own It podcast and has over 30 years of investing experience. And so I'm guessing, like you guys, I'm excited about this conversation because there's going to be a lot to learn. So Ben, I appreciate you joining us, my man.
Well, Shawn, thank you so much for having me. What a privilege to be on your show, and look forward to adding a tremendous amount of value to your audience and really see how I can help them through my 3 decades of experience of being a principal in commercial real estate.
Awesome. Well, I have no doubt you will. Before we hit record, I was already, I know that there's going to be a ton of value, lots of things that we're going to unpack from this conversation. And, I've always been a real estate guy. I've been investing full time now for 25 years. That's all that's ever paid my bills for 25 years now. And so, and I'm love real estate in general, hard assets. That's what I'm all about. I specifically stay in one specific lane, which is short-term rentals, but I've bounced around some other lanes with some long-term rentals in the residential space, some small multifamily deals. I've done a lot of development deals, but there's a lot of different avenues, right? And the residential, commercial, 2 major avenues. I know that you have a ton of experience on the commercial side of it. But even within commercial, there's a lot of different lanes in commercial, right? But why don't when we talk about short-term rentals, obviously with us, we're staying, those are more residential type properties that we're turning these little businesses into short-term rentals, but they're, hotels, hospitality, that would be more on the commercial side. But why don't we unpack just for people that are listening, the commercial side of it, right? And why you believe that commercial real estate should be a part of every portfolio and why, and the things that you kind of like about the commercial space, because that is, again, not my expertise. I know a lot about the real estate world, but I've never really spent a ton of time in the commercial space.
Well, coming from Chicago and 30 years ago, I'm 55 years old and I've been in the business for over 3 decades. I started when I was 23 years old. And what I saw from wealth between the Crowns and the Pritzkers and Sam Zell and all these icons in commercial real estate, I said, well, how do I build wealth? And how do I build a portfolio of wealth? And that was through commercial real estate. So for me, it was the default to get into it. Once I got into it, one thing you said I think is extremely important for your audience to know is that in life, you get rewarded for focus. So like Shawn does, and he focuses on rentals, vacation rentals, and short-term rentals, I think it's a wonderful niche. And that's his focus and expertise, and he gets rewarded for that. He is the expert in that niche. So for us, we're one of the largest medical office owners in the United States. That's one of our niches. Now, we have multiple niches because as we've grown, Shawn, we've been able to build more divisions. Like I'm a big industrial owner, and we own retail, and we just started multifamily in 2024. But you get rewarded for focus. And my suggestion is if you're just getting started off or you're building your career, and no matter what age you are, focus on one niche. And one of the things I teach is depending on the region you are in the country will help you dictate where you want to be. Now, being from Chicago, I could be in any niche because I'm in the second largest city in the United States where I grew up and where I'm from. Now, if I'm in a different city, it could be short-term rentals, it could be multifamily, it could be mobile homes, it could be hotels, it could be a combination of both or either or a bunch of them. Depending on, so you get reward focus. So for me, commercial real estate was something that I learned at a young age. I'm a dynamo with numbers. I could see them in my head. And I realized that this is something I want to do to produce wealth. And I'm also a CPA. And so for me, the tax benefits and understanding the value that our forefathers in this country established of these great tax benefits years and years ago, I realized that in order to build wealth, it was through hard assets. And hard assets to me are so important because, especially look at this world, we're in a world of uncertainty. We have wars going on. The economic viability would happen in the last handful of years, the geopolitical instability going on overseas. And so hard assets provide stability, predictability, and long-term wealth. And it was the age-old formula that I saw in commercial real estate because I said, well, coming from Chicago, the wealthiest individuals and families secure their legacy and build wealth, Shawn, from commercial real estate. And it's that real estate or precious metals or private lending is where they're doing it. And I said, well, I'm going to pick commercial real estate because that's what I see them doing. And if those habits and behavior is producing wealth, why am I going to reinvent the wheel? And that's how I got into it. And and it helped me establish my new book and what was so important to me because for years, Shawn, there were so many people coming to me and saying, can you look at my portfolio? Can you teach me how to invest in commercial real estate? Can you give me feedback on this investment from a different sponsor? And I kept hearing that question for decades. And I said, there's a real problem out there that I need to solve from my experience. And because most people don't have a roadmap of how to build their empire of hard assets, how to acquire assets. They lack that methodology and the strategy and the blueprint. And it was interesting. A year ago, I met with my team and I said, I need to do something. I keep getting the same question over and over again. Why don't we write a book and we're going to develop a blueprint for a hard asset empire? And that's how it came about. And then the name of the book is Hard Assets and Hard Money for Hard Times. And because I quickly learned, Shawn, that most people don't know how to generate wealth. And most people don't teach it. I mean, you and I are Gen Xers and the baby boomers. When I was in the business growing up, they didn't want to teach me. They said, listen, Ben, get in the deep water and swim yourself and figure it out. And that's what I did. But most people don't understand assets or money or time like we talked about. And they're all tools to build wealth. And time is so important. And so the other thing I learned about was most of people don't even understand how to invest in medical office, which I do. And even doctors. We started getting doctors as investors and other investors. And they said, we don't understand. We're in the buildings. We'd like to own them, but we don't understand how it works. And so once I wrote the book, I knew I needed to take a step further. I had to go even deeper. So I spent hours and hours writing this thing because I said, so why write about a hard asset empire? Like, what's the point? How are people going to benefit? And I said, well, it's a place that they're going to generate wealth. They're going to retain their wealth, and they're going to defend and compound their wealth. And I said, okay, well, that's the start that we're going to lay a foundation. So I create a vehicle to help people generate wealth, but also really understand it. But not only that is to be able to walk away from that book and pull it off the bookshelf and say, okay, I'm on to the next step, or I want to add to this, or I want to build. And so we created where you're building a fortress, like a castle. It's almost like you're building a building. We're building it with you. And I said, well, we're going to put in every book this hard asset blueprint that you can have forever. And it's simple, but it's extremely powerful. And I want it to be personalized. I wanted everyone to have a snapshot on one piece of paper, make it real simple. And I did that where it has cornerstones and capstones and keystones. And I teach what all this means for you to input for every single individual. So no matter what age you are, what income level, what success, if you're retired or whatever, or you're just getting started, I wanted a tool in the book to really help people because I haven't seen it. And I wanted this visual framework for everyone that they can use. And so it's for everyone. And what I love about it, it really empowers people to create independence. Because, someone that has a 9-to-5 job can pick it up and say, well, how do I start? Just like when you started and I started, it's like, how do I develop that independence? How do I develop that empire that I'm dying? I see Elon Musk on the news. I see Bezos. I see all these wealthy people. How do they do it? How do they create it? And so I wanted to do that. But I also knew that it allows people to have different strategies, like a crisis ready strategy. So when you're struggling, you're worrying about your job, and you can start building your empire, it's going to give you that independence you need so you can weather economic downturns and bank collapses and different economic cycles we all go through, and market crashes and ups and downs and interest rates rising. And so I teach all this, and I give everyone this personalized roadmap to be able to do it. And the benefit is that all these things, me and all my colleagues, they're proven tactics.
Yeah.
I'm not pulling something off the shelf saying, no, this is what I live by, what my colleagues live by. And it's decades of experience in commercial real estate, in private lending, alternative asset classes. This goes beyond just Ben Reinberg. This is a lot of research and diligence with my colleagues in addition to me. And so what I'm looking for people to do is to have the ability to build a legacy for themselves, that multi-generational wealth. Because when you build your blueprint, your hard asset blueprint, not only is it for yourself, but your kids and future generations can use that blueprint and start stacking, improving walls. It's almost like if you had a house, for everyone out there, if you know residential, if you have to redo a wall or a roof or whatever, that's what it allows you to pivot. It allows you to change. It allows you to say, you know what? My life's different. I'm older. My capstones are going to change. My priorities are changed. It gives you that foundation that you can visually see it. And it's an actionable book to help you. So it's accessible to all. It's a great, true companion guide to let you use it for the rest of your life. And people say, well, I like, why should I pick up the book? And for me, it's like, I wrote it not for me, I wrote it for you. And because I hear people and I have kids in their 20s, and I let them feed on their own. Dad's not their bank. Yeah. Okay. I want my kids to do what I did. And if you're tired of feeling uncertain about your financial future, or you're trying to figure out, like, how do I build wealth and how do I start and stack on it and improve, no matter what age you are, and you're like, I want to take control of my life. I'm tired of depending on other people. I want that. And they want to build something tangible that lasts. That's why you pick up this book. It's to see that blueprint. It's to have the tools and the insights. And if you get 1 ounce of knowledge from my stories, because you know what? I'm extremely vulnerable. I talk about deals that didn't go well. I talk about war stories. I talk about anxiety. I talk about loans that I've had to deal with and working them out. Like, it is a true example. So you could be like, yeah, Ben Reinberg's successful, but it's not easy. And I don't represent that it's easy. And so people say, well, how does it work? I always say, pull the trigger and start today. Just start, get your feet wet, get into the deep water. Now, for me, it was interesting because when I was a young man, I started off as a principal. I wasn't a broker. I didn't build a nest egg. I didn't come from money. I just did shoe leather. I threw on the suit and wore leather shoes. And I just realized that, like, empires aren't built overnight. Yep. But if you have the right blueprint, it's inevitable. And so I said, if I could take someone on a higher learning, get them on a higher learning curve than when I was 23 years old and starting, what would that be like for someone? Because that's what I would have wanted. So I said, well, if I could share that with someone, my gosh, Shawn, how amazing would that be to allow people to build wealth and have something tangible and actionable to get there? And that's why I wrote the book. And that's why it's interesting. We didn't realize what a hit it was. You could pre-order it on my website, and we've had thousands of people lined up ready to go because, again, no one's doing it and no one's talking about it because everyone thinks it's like a secret. Right. But I'd rather just say, you know what? Here it is. Go if you got the guts and the stones to really motivate and do something for yourself. That's why you pick up the book. Right.
I love it. And there's so much to unpack there, but one is there's really 3 phases, in my opinion, of building wealth and creating wealth. And one is, preparing to build wealth, right? That's getting your mind right, understanding the road you're going to run down, all those different things. Then it's understanding how to start to stack those dollars, start to build the wealth and start to generate the income. And then ultimately the final is keeping the wealth, right? Just because you make some money doesn't mean you're going to keep it. One, you and I both love hard assets for a reason. And a lot of that has to do with keeping. We can use those hard assets to also build wealth. But what I love about having a guide and a blueprint that is built on foundational principles. Every time I talk to somebody who's successful, there's not some big, magic bullet, crazy secret that everybody, only the successful people know. It's saying, hey, listen, we're going to put a framework around the fundamentals. And by doing so, it also allows somebody that's in that preparing stage to understand how to articulate and how to visualize what path they're going to run down. And that's where really good guides like, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that was a phenomenal book with a very, very simple concept with the cash flow quadrants, right? And a lot of us have taken that guide in that concept and saying, okay, I understand that. This makes sense now. So now I have the confidence to go start to take step 2 and step 3 and run down the road. The other thing I love, and it's one of the mantras around here at Odyssey that we always say is, we will never promise the easy button. We will never promise that this is not a hard road to run down. This is, anything worth having. It's going to be difficult, right? But what we want to do is help somebody accelerate the progress. All the mistakes we made, there's no overnight success stories. There's 10, 20, 30 year success stories and lessons learned along the way that somebody is trying to pass along so that you can accelerate. But it's no promise that there's not going to be a dragon around every single corner, because there might be a dragon around the corners you run down just the same as we ran down them, right? But the nice thing is, when you have a book like this, Ben, you're saying to people is, hey, listen, there's going to be this dragon, but guess what? I've fought that dragon before. You've never fought that dragon. So I know how to kill the dragon. I'm going to show you how to do it, right? It's not promising the dragon's not going to be there, but having a really good, solid foundational guide that you can say, okay, I've got the confidence that somebody else has actually been down this road before me. I have a framework and fundamentals that I understand and I can conceptualize, because then if I believe I can do it, then people are a lot more willing to take those steps. And I think that that's what you're kind of explaining through is this is going to be that one, the foundational principles that you can wrap your head around with the concepts and the blueprint, but also then saying, hey, listen, as you start running down this road, here's how to accelerate your progress and how to make it easier, not easy, right? There's a difference. And a lot of these concepts are always super simple. I have always, in my office, I have an axe on the wall as a reminder that simple is not always easy, right? An axe is a really simple tool. It's not always easy to use. You got to roll up your sleeves. There's got to be a lot of effort involved. You got to be consistent. You got to be persistent, and you're going to be having to swing that axe even when you don't want to swing it. And that's where we don't promise that is not going to be there. We say, hey, listen, on the other side of this is what everybody wants the view, nobody wants to climb. We're saying, hey, we're going to try and make it and accelerate the climb. And that sounds like what you're trying to do with the book there.
Well, it's so well said. And it's like, if your axe is dull, and I come from the Midwest and we have a lot of axes and trees and Paul Bunyan's from our area, that, you could take a dull axe, but if you are consistent and you keep hitting the tree and hitting it and eventually it's going to fall, no matter how sharp it is. And that's how business is in life. I mean, and one thing I want to share with your audience is, even though I've been extremely successful in my career and I'm in the prime of my career, the work doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Like, I don't forget the moments when I was young and didn't have money, and the work doesn't stop. I mean, people ask me what's your work ethic? I work Saturdays and Sundays if I have to. I come in the office. I come to the office here in Newport Beach. I'm the only one in the building. Yeah. So it's those quiet moments when I'm alone. That's when I'm shining. And so no one's going to hold your hand and convince you got to show up to work. But if you're going to be in commercial real estate, or you're going to be in the business of developing a hard asset empire, you got to put the work in. You got to, and it doesn't stop. As you get older, you got more problems and stuff. And so, it's interesting what you said, because as you start building your hard asset empire, now you got to say, well, how do I protect it? How do I retain it? And so it comes into asset protection, and it comes into structuring and who you surround yourself with, which we talk about, great attorneys and great accountants. Like, I spent a majority of my career cultivating this incredible team where there's all in Chicago. It's a big city, and they're superstars in what they do. And so I can count on them. I rely on them. They're dependable. They're sharp. I always convince people, hey, find people smarter than you to surround yourself with. Develop that inner circle. And for everyone out there, I also talk about in the book, I talk about your mind. I talk about your mindset. I talk about working on yourself. I talk about how important it is because you're going to be beaten up. And I don't mean physically. I'm talking about mentally in business. And business is going to test you. It's going to show you. And when I give these war stories in the book, Shawn, which are near and dear to me, and I'm vulnerable, I want people to know, like, it isn't easy. It's a war. Every day I go to war in my office. Every day I'm dealing with challenges. And that's what leaders do. And so you end up becoming a leader if you're persistent. You end up learning and improving your communication and how to deal with people. And everyone's got different lenses. I mean, you brought up very eloquently before we got started is that all our lenses are different. We grew up in different environments. We grew up with different situations. We have different types of families. We have different types of friends. We have different experiences. And so I tell everyone out there is one of the things I've learned is to seek the truth in what someone's saying. When you are talking to someone and you can listen to them, understand what their truth is. Ask them questions because you learn, and the faster you can learn in buying hard assets, any industry you're in, the better, superior chance for you have for success. Because people will say, well, is there this magic recipe? And I said, no, I just work on myself. I balance my emotions. I treat people a certain way. People gravitate to me because I'm a good listener and I care about people. But it doesn't matter where you're from, what the color of your skin is, your religion. It doesn't matter to me because I have friends from all over the world. And when I can seek the truth in what people are saying to me and appreciate and show that gratitude, I learn something. And don't stop learning and don't stop growing. And it's so important because in business and life, you're going to change, you're going to evolve. Now, Ben Reinberg, when he was 21, 22, especially 23 when he got started, I'm a totally different person at the age of 50. I mean, we're not even the same person.
Yeah.
And so, the person in his 20s was rough and abrasive and disrespectful. And that guy doesn't even exist. He's gone. And how did he leave? He left because I worked on myself. He left that I was aware of who I was and who I wanted to become. And it's why now it's my turn to give back. It's my turn to show my gratitude to all the people that helped me along the way. And it's been gratifying. This book has been a real emotional, gratifying thing for me because it reflects things I've been through in my career, but also says, wow, someone can really do this and not have to struggle like I did.
Yeah.
And it's really important to me. And so, but for everyone out there listening is you can do it. I am, and Shawn is as well. We're both testaments of you can do it. You can build your own business. You can buy hard assets. You can produce wealth. You can build a family if that's what you want. And you can do it and enjoy life and do it in the right way. And that's why I developed the blueprint for everyone.
I love it. I love it. And I'm, when we talk about you're absolutely an expert in the commercial space and different avenues within that within commercial, right? You've got different asset classes within commercial that you guys are just absolute rock stars with. And, one of the questions I always get when I'm on a podcast and somebody's interviewing us as a short-term rental expert, and I'm sure you get a similar question a lot, is, why should I invest in short-term rentals? Why do you like short-term rentals above and beyond everything else? And I'm sure you get, why do you like commercial above and beyond everything else? There's reasons we like it, right? But some of it is, if we really look back, if I'm really honest about why I'm in short-term rentals, it was because of what I was exposed to when I was in a position to start doing it. And then I just stayed focused on that asset class because I always answer the question and say, listen, I don't believe, and maybe you disagree with me, I don't believe there's a perfect asset class. I don't believe there's a perfect market. I don't believe there's a perfect economy. And I believe in I've done really well by being able to say, hey, listen, what is the best option for me? What are my property goals? What are going to help me reach those goals? And then what am I kind of interested in, right? Because I believe all these asset classes, I believe hard assets are where, the most predictability is and the most stability is I would argue that all day long with somebody and say, hey, I do believe in hard assets. I think that you do as well. But when it comes to real estate, I love real estate. It's a hard asset. And I think that there's so many pros in so many different lanes in real estate. But I always say, listen, short-term rentals might not be the right fit for you. You might really be attracted to something else. Maybe it's commercial. And, there's a lot more leverage and bigger opportunities in commercial. Maybe you're like, hey, listen, I'm going to really take this to the moon. All these there's pros and cons to all of it. And I'm curious what you would say to that.
Yeah. And first of all, I agree with you. And not every shoe fits everyone.
Right.
I grew up in Chicago. Chicago's a big office industrial market.
Yeah.
So, I had colleagues of mine getting into multifamily. And I said, well, I don't want to be in that space. It's too competitive. They're all in it. So where are we going with it? And so I said, well, I'm going to get into office industrial. It's a huge market. Chicago's a 24/7 city. It's got 3 shifts. It's a hardworking city. It's got great work ethic and office and industrial. And office at the time made sense. And so I thought I was going to buy skyscrapers, and that's what we started doing, is buying large office campuses, and that switched. And I talk about it in the book, but office industrial was my niche because of where I'm from. I tell people, Shawn, I said, look, depending on where you're located can help you make a decision. You might be in a small area in North Carolina and say, you know what, multifamily is a good positioning space for me. And I could be And because I'm in North Carolina, I could drive to Georgia and South Carolina and all these different states we own real estate in. And I'm going to do multifamily, or I'm going to do medical office, or whatever your niche is. I just encourage people to pick a niche. Now I'm at a different point because people run these divisions within my company that I'm not the expert. I understand multifamily, but I hired someone with 25 years experience to run this division for a reason. Right. And so I'm smart. I'll know how to delegate and find the right people. And so pick, especially when you're getting started or you want to get into real estate. One of my neighbors, I was at a soup party on Saturday night where everyone made soups, and it's kind of funny because I'm in California and 60 degrees and we're eating soup.
Having soup.
It's cold for here compared to Chicago and Midwest. And so he's sitting around and he's like, hey, and people know what I do and they see me online, and he's like, can I talk to you? And my wife looked at me and, all right, here we go again. So I'm just going to start talking to you for an hour about commercial real estate. And he invested in multifamily. What he did for a living was he invented and created all these video games like Call of Duty and all these things that people play, which I don't understand. But he wanted to talk about multifamily. He buys like 25, unit buildings, and he's done very well. He's got 20 of them. He's got a great portfolio. And he was asking me questions. And so you can do anything and anyone can do it. And so my thought is just pick a niche in your area that works, start local. Even though we're an international economy and global and everything, I like to encourage people is pick your niche, pick it local, see if you like it, get started. And it's the reason why people invest with us, these passive investors, because it's not easy. But you can build a hard asset empire by investing in Alliance or Shawn or whoever you want as a sponsor. And a lot of people do that. And I don't blame them because I'm not building a technology company. I might invest in a technology company, which I do. It's not my expertise. So you want to invest also along with smart money, which I definitely encourage everyone out there. If you have a certain niche, let's just say you're an insurance agent or you're a doctor or you're a rancher, whatever you do that you love, but you want to build hard asset, leverage into someone like smart money. You can leverage into me or Shawn or a lot of other people out there. I don't care who you leverage into. And that's something you could do as well. And so I tell people there's no excuse why you can't start building hard assets. You could start small at any age, start learning, start growing. And then eventually you could decide like, hey, I want to do this on my own. I want to build. Or, you know what? I like what I do. I'm a graphic designer, but I want to allocate some capital in an alternative asset like hard assets, like especially real estate or commercial real estate. So there's a lot of ways to approach it, Shawn, and it's all about getting started and how you can take your life to a next level. And that's why this book was written, is to say to people like, okay, you see it out there, but let me show you what you can do to build it, to make it your own.
Love it. And I love that you brought up, because I wanted to ask you that on, because I always say, there's the key to building wealth is really leveraging your own time, money, and knowledge, but more importantly, leveraging somebody else's time, money, and knowledge. Right. And when you started talking about like with what you guys do at Alliance CGC and being able to invest into a fund, you're leveraging somebody else's that are probably way more experienced, way smarter, all of three of those: time, money, and knowledge, and being able to be passive about it. And sometimes that's the smartest step that I actually point a lot of people to that don't want to take the time to be able to really dive in and do it all on their own, because there's, both have pros and cons. But if you're diving into a fund structure and being able to leverage somebody else's, which is, in this case, very smart when it comes to their own time, how much time has been spent, how big is that management team that's in there, how much experience do they have that you're not going to catch up with. You start today, you're not catching up with somebody that's 30 years ahead of you, right? The money that's involved in it, you're able to invest with other investors with other money in there, and then getting really good terms. Typically, you got institutional based terms that you can't go get on your own, right? And then also their knowledge, again, that knowledge space that they've built over the last how many decades, and you can leverage into that. That's a big lever to pull, right? You can move the earth with a long enough lever, right? Yeah, and as an investor, so be able to leverage that kind of knowledge is huge.
Yeah, it's so well said too, because when you look at my company Alliance and people say, well, why do we invest with Alliance? And we have investors all over the world. We have, outside of me, we have 200 plus years of leadership team experience. We know how to solve challenges. We've seen different economic cycles. We were one of the first companies to create an investor portal online for investors. So the learning curve is extensive. And that's why I say, like, if you want to invest with us, it's a live experience. We have great track record, upper 20s IRR on assets across the board. And it's why I invest. So I invested in the Alliance Medical Fund, which we launched a couple of years ago. It's doing very well. And it's because I want the same experience that an investor does. So I'm an investor over shoulder. I'm like, well, if our funds and our syndications are doing so well, why wouldn't I invest my own money in and get the same tax benefit? So I'm a large investor and I love it and I support what we do. And I'm a big advocate. And again, the foundation is hard assets. And so again, it's investing with smart money is so important. And it's why when I go outside my comfort zone of commercial real estate and I'm going to invest with someone, it's that experience, that knowledge, like you said, that great lever to, because look, we invest in medical properties, but I'm not doing the surgeons. I'm not a surgeon. I'm not doing surgery like our cardiologists out there or orthopedic doctors. I mean, that's insane. That's their niche. And so, like you said, it all goes back to you are rewarded for focus. Right. Now, I'll repeat that again. Life, you are rewarded for focus. And it's funny because you mentioned time. Now, I'll tell you something we do at Alliance, which I think is fascinating. So we'll fly in our leadership team, say to California or Chicago, wherever we're going. And we didn't exercise on time. At the time we did this, the average lifespan was 77. Now, it could be a little bit greater, but just go with this example. Well, I'm 55 years old. Okay, so I got 22 years left to live. 22 times 52 weeks is X amount, say 1,000 change. Then we go and we look at someone on a leadership team, and let's just say they're 30 years old. Okay, 30 minus 77, and it's a different decision tree. Right, their decisions are going to be different. So as you're getting older, okay, it's you only have so much time left on this earth. You'll say to yourself, you know what, Shawn, I'm going to leverage into an Alliance or a Shawn Moore. I'm going to leverage into a Vodacy or an Alliance or something else because I don't have time to go on the learning curve. And by the way, I don't want to spend the time and manage properties and deal with the headaches that Alliance does and all the BS that you have to deal with tenants and everything else that goes on in this space. And so time is everything. And I tell people, really understand your time, really value it. And so if you take that example and you look at it, and what's interesting about this exercise, and this gets into a personal level. So if you say to yourself, and let's just say people out there have parents and they're still living, and let's say you're 60 years old and you got 17 years times 52 weeks, those amount of weeks, where do you spend your time? What's important to you? Who do you spend it with? how often. So if you had parents out there, and let's say your parents are in their 80s, and you do the same exercise, and every month, every year matters based on that exercise, are you going to think a little bit harder about going out to see them, spending time with them? Same thing
Exactly.
with family. Same thing, no matter what you do. Where are you spending your time? And so time is a real interesting factor because no one really talks about or looks at an exercise like that.
Yeah.
But when you start incorporating it in the business world and you say to yourself, where am I going to spend time? Even at the age of 25 or however old you are, it adds up quickly. It goes by quickly. So I tell everyone out there, really understand your time, really understand where do you spend it. And so what's great about the Hard Asset Empire Blueprint is it really makes you understand, like, I got to focus and put time because I'm going to lay it on a piece of paper where are my capstones and my keystones and my walls and what's inside the walls to build wealth. And where am I going to focus and put time? And so time was something that when I wrote the book, I said, this is something we really have to understand and master for the people out there following along with this, because it's really important. And so think about that exercise. If you see
I
the
love it.
average lifespan 77, take your age, multiply 52 weeks. That's the amount of time you have on this earth. And so take advantage of it and really respect it and be grateful for it.
Yeah, I love it. I love where this conversation led and talking about that because it is so fleeting, right? One of the things that as I try to study success and people that are a heck of a lot smarter than me, and these conversations like I'm having with you today, is one of the topics that comes up with the most successful people in the world is time all the time, like on a regular, consistent basis. And the wealthiest people in the world, they will spend the most amount of money to buy back their time, maximize their time, accelerate their progress or time onto something because they understand how valuable that is. And I love that exercise because it really can be kind of scary, right? When you look at it and say, I'm 48 years old. We look at it, it's like, I got 27 years left and I'm like, holy crap, this is going to go by fast. And you're exactly right. The decision tree and the way that you process decisions and go through decisions, when you look at it with that time element in there is really completely different when you add that in versus if you remove it, right? And I love that conversation went there because it's when you talk about the people of the world that can buy anything they want to buy, have anything they want to have, the thing they will spend the most amount of money on and the thing that they always want more of is time.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And we take it for granted when we're young. And, and I saw it on my leadership team with some of the younger folks, their decisions are differently.
Yeah.
And part of the lesson is, when I talked about seek the truth and what other people are thinking and seeing, and it's that decision tree is different. If they're older and they understand time, their decisions are going to be a little bit different. Their risk tolerance is going to be different. They're going to think a little bit differently. And so when you become really aware of what I call the playing field of life, you can really become a good listener and good student of human nature and human behavior. And it's why in my company, we hired a chief people officer, because for us, we were trying to figure out this whole remote and hybrid workforce. We have so many people working at Alliance. And we said, we really don't understand because we got different generations. We got people that grew up on technology. We got people like you and I, Shawn, where it's like we have green ledger paper and stamps and envelopes and checks and encyclopedias and libraries and microfiche. And this is how we were raised in our generation. It was more of picking up the phone and calling someone and having a conversation. You go over to their house and go play sports with them or whatever your fancy was. I mean, there's none of that now. And so it's all technology. And so dealing with people is different. And so we have different generations in the workforce, and you better understand how to deal with people. And so it's something we double down at Alliance. And again, it goes to understanding these principles that we talk about, is understanding people's lenses and how old they are and the time and their experiences, and they're different. And it's when you can master that and really listen to people and understand and ask questions. And that's why, to me, I'm always improving communication. Always just want to master it, want to learn it, want to understand it, want to understand the human nature side. It's fascinating to me. Yeah. And so a lot of that went into this book, because towards the latter part, we talk about, your mindset. We talk about staying in the game. And for everyone out there listening, I can tell you from my experience and a lot of colleagues, I'm sure Shawn could tell you the same thing, is that you're going to have ups and downs in life. It's part of life. It's how you deal with it. It's how you show up. It's that persistence and resistance. And I'm sure everyone out there hears all this from a lot of people if you follow people online. But it's the absolute truth. It's how do you, really take that line of just keep pushing forward, because there's going to be times where it brings you down. You're going to have highs. You're going to have adrenaline rushes. You're going to have letdowns. You're going to be disappointed in relationships. You're going to have a great attorney, and next thing you know, you want to switch. I've been through it all, and I've seen it. And so for everyone out there, this book is just more about building a hard asset empire. It's having the skills and mindset and the ability as an individual to do it as well, because there's times you're going to doubt yourself. There's times you're going to look at it and say, I can't do this. So how do you deal with it? And we talk about those things. And so that's important too. It's a lot of personal experience that I've been through. And also in addition to people that have been through the same experiences with me that we're providing to you. And so I hope you enjoy it. I hope you pick it up, and it's something that you'll have forever.
Love it. Love it. I appreciate it. And as we're wrapping up, I know I want to be really respectful of your time, but it's first, I want to publicly thank you for joining me on the podcast. I get a lot of people that reach out to me, Ben, to want to be on the podcast. And I get a lot of fund managers, syndicators, everything else. And I'm very, very reluctant to have a lot of them on, because it's kind of the hot topic in real estate investing, is to go start a fund and use other people's money to invest. I think that there's a lack of responsibility in a lot of it, frankly. But we were looking out from the outside, looking, at what you guys were doing. And I was specifically asking you to come on and join me. And I know you've got, a big following, and we're a very small niche platform and a niche, kind of podcast. And a lot of times the bigger guys like yourself, big time us. And you were very, very gracious in saying, hey, listen, I'd love to have this conversation. So one, publicly, thank you. And I really, really appreciate it. I know just by having this conversation, I know that our listeners can feel it as well. Just the sincerity in the conversation and what you're really wanting people to walk into this game with their eyes wide open. And that's what our goal always is to help people walk into building that bigger and better life with their eyes wide open and giving them the confidence and the belief that they can do it. And I'm really excited to read the book. And so, when does it release? When does it release so that we can get on the list for it?
It's going to drop in February. I think the hardcover will be out in March. It will also be in soft color. We will have an audiobook and an ebook as well. We're going to touch them all.
Love it.
And if you go to benreinberg.com, which is my personal website, the company website is alliancecgc.com. But if you go to benreinberg.com/book, you could pre-order it. Okay. Had thousands of people pre-order this book. They're getting ready. And it's crazy. I mean, how much activity we have. And I'm going to be speaking in the next couple months as well, that people can come see me and I'll personally autograph a book for them, which I'm doing a lot of. And for everyone out there, it's like, go ahead and pre-order it. It's going to be very reasonably priced. This is not an expensive book. It's more of a book that we wanted to have for the masses. So we kept the price very economical. It will be great. And what's great about it is if you're listening, okay, and you're a certified financial planner, or you're a registered investment advisor, or you're an accountant or attorneys, we have a lot of people, which I think is a great idea. And we thought of this, is that they're buying hundreds of books to give out to their clients, because they see it's like we want to be an ambassador to the hard asset blueprint. We want to show you how to create this, and we're going to help you get there. And so a lot of finance professionals, a lot of professionals out there that are ordering multiple lots, it's because they want to give them out to their clients and say, hey, I want you to read this and start thinking about it. How can we work together? How can I help you? Because attorneys are like, well, you need the legal work. You need asset protection. You're going to have transactional work. You need tax work if you're accountants. So it's been a great thing, because all the masses and people out there can give it as a nice gift to teach people and help people. And so that's been very rewarding. And the reason, you brought up a good point, and people say, why do you go on podcasts, Ben? Like, why do you do it? I do it because there's one person out there listening that was Ben Reinberg when he was a kid from Chicago, man or woman. And I want that person to know out there, especially on this podcast, that I'm listening and I know who you are and I feel you. And I was that person when I was a young man, or when you're adults and you're trying to pivot to do something else. And so I come on these shows to give my experience and knowledge because I want to inspire you and impact you. And if there's someone out there listening to this podcast that I changed their life or I mentioned one word or an idea, I'm doing my job. That's what it's about. And that's why we wrote the book, Hard Assets and Hard Money for Hard Times. It's the same mantra over and over again. And guess what, Shawn? It's one thing I've learned in life. The more I give, the more I get. And you know what? My leadership team benefits, my employees benefits, and everyone wins. And someone out there is looking for that knowledge to say, how do I change my life? And hopefully that's why I come on, just to drop something that maybe inspires people.
Love it. Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed the conversation, how much I appreciate it. And I know how much our audience does as well. Those of you will always post all of those links in the show notes, but you can go check out the company at the fund with alliancecgc.com. Go to benreinberg.com/book to order a pre-order copy of the books or multiple books. I know that I'm going to be going on there right after this and making sure I get my copy as well. I'm really excited to read it. I absolutely feel the sincerity of saying, hey, listen, if one person's listening, a lot of people say that. That's not always true because a lot of people turn you down if if it's not a huge major platform. And you're, you guys that will also post Ben's social platforms and does amazing content. It's got over 1 million followers on Instagram. You don't get 1 million followers without being sincere and posting a lot of content and doing a really good job with it and having a lot of experience. And so, congrats on that as well. And hopefully our listeners will be following you. And so as we wrap up, Ben, the final word I always like to give my guest of going back to your younger self. Like you said, you were this podcast, there's been a lot of different things to unpack, a lot of nuggets dropped. If you just had one thing to tell your younger self, what would it be if as you start into this journey?
Well, I didn't know it when I was younger, but if I can go back, and I've been asked this a lot, and the answer is pretty consistent, is I would have worked on myself. Yeah. I would have really got to know who Ben Reinberg is and said, what do I need to work on? What do I need to improve? Like what's inside of me that needs to improve, and be honest with myself. And so I would have been more honest with myself and figured out when I was a lot younger in my 20s of where can I improve? Where can I work on myself? How do I get into personal development? How do I learn about human behavior?
Love it.
And so when my kids ask me, like, what do I need to work on? I'm like, if you can work on yourself and become that version of where you can create happiness within yourself, because I wasn't happy as a kid, and I'm honest about it. But I also learned that I grew and developed and worked on myself. And so, but it took years to know that I could do that, and I had to do it, and I had to fall in love with myself. And so if you're younger out there and you're in those shoes and you're trying to figure out life, work on yourself, because that version of yourself is going to attract a lot of great things in life.
I love it. I love that answer. And I probably love the answer the best because, one, I haven't had anybody tell me that, but also for me, as a younger, I would have loved to have heard somebody tell me that. I was this cocky, egotistical, freewheeling kid that, I thought I'd arrived, full-time real estate investor early in my 20s, making a lot more money than anybody else I knew in my community. And I was just, this just really kind of an asshole. And really a lot of it came from my own insecurities, right? I was trying to show that I wasn't that. And I love that answer of working on yourself and really try to peel back the layers of the onion of really who you are, who you want to be, what you want to become, and start working on it on a daily basis. And now we know that it's a never ending game, right? It's a never ending question, right? We're never there.
I'm constantly working on, people are like, do you really still personal develop? Now I invest like 6-7 figures in a year sometime. It's that extensive. It's obnoxious, Shawn. It's like, you look at the budget and you're like, my God, are we spending a lot of money on this? But it's the best investment. I'm making it myself. So I go through and I've done different exercises. I got different mentors, and we have a most famous human behaviorist that works in my company. I work with her one-on-one every single Monday. I get an hour of her time. And I'm grateful, and sometimes I even call her more than I should, just to shoot the shit with her and have fun. But yeah, I work on myself. I meditate. I do all these things. I'm into health. I work out. I'm into weights and work out with the trainer 5 days a week. I'm into all that because I want to live as long as I can to help as many people as I can and to leave a legacy. And part of that is being healthy and keeping my mind healthy. And so I constantly am looking to grow and improve. And I'm one of these people, I'm a very entrepreneurial type spirit, is I want to keep growing as a person. And that's what I love about this personal brand and the social media space. And I got into it 3 years ago, was it allows me also not only to help people, but allows me to grow as a person and really get to meet incredible people that have impacted me. So.
Love it. I love it. And so, Ben, you're an absolute rock star. I really, really appreciate your time. Those of you listening, we know how valuable your time is as well, and we appreciate you spending it with us. And I don't even need to ask you the normal favor of sharing the show. I know you guys will. I know that I hope you got as much out of this as I did from this conversation. And so we'll post all of those links that we talked about, benreinberg.com, alliancecgc.com, his social platforms. Go order a pre-copy of the book, all of those different places that you can go to get more of this amazing content and really just to give yourself that foundational belief that you should start on this journey and really continue to build on the journey that you're on. And so, guys, as a favor, at the end of every episode, I ask you two things. Share the show. I already asked you that. And I don't, like I said, I don't need to really ask you that too much. If you like it, and you know somebody else who might like these kind of conversations, walking into these games with their eyes wide open, share the show. Those things help us a lot. We don't run ads or sponsorships. The only way it grows is if you guys share it, which is what I believe it should be. And so if you have more than 30 seconds, like it or review it on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. And the final, most important thing I ask you guys at the end of every episode, pick the one thing you can do today to start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodacy.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.